know in your heart what is right, what is wrong, and what is a truth and what is a lie. And when we start from that, we will win our nation back. Imagine being indicted in 4 separate jurisdictions, and each prosecutor in each courtroom you walk into wants to put you away for life. And they want to put you away for life because of who you are. Because it has become so political. This 2024 presidential election, it is driving the left mad and the establishment. They hate President Trump. They hate anyone who wants to put President Trump into office. They do not want, they being the bureaucracy, the established bureaucracy, the lawmakers on the left, especially the radical leftist lawmakers, and the establishment who's become very cozy with the left. Look, they sleep in the same exact bed, guys. They pretend to take 2 different roads, but those 2 roads lead to the same exact bedroom. And they're fine there. And they do it right in our face. I have Lee Smith on today. He is a phenomenal columnist for Tablet. He's actually a genius in my book. He has written 2 books, by the way, The Permanent Coup and The Plot Against the President, both regarding the same stories I investigated as well, regarding President Trump. And we're talking about this permanent coup today. We're talking about what that means to us as Americans. Is this the first time we've ever seen this happen in American history? This sort of vitriol against a sitting president? Has the bureaucracy been operating secretly this way all the time? And we're just starting to see it now because of the exposure with regard to President Trump that's brought us? Did they think they would just get away with it? Is this all about Hillary Clinton? Or is this really about Barack Obama? Lee Smith is going to talk about this and so much more. He's going to talk about pathological, the type of personalities, George Soros, President Barack Obama, former CIA Director John Brennan, former Director of the FBI James Comey, former Director of the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence James Clapper. How they lie, what they want, and why they are taking us there. You do not want to miss this at all, because this is going to be a episode that is going to dissect the deep state's plot against President Trump. And Lee Smith has documented the unprecedented campaign to attack the 45th president and keep him from becoming the 47th president in the United States. But first, I need to thank Allegiance Gold. Allegiance Gold is a sponsor of the Sara Carter Show and an organization that I really, truly believe in, one that I believe wants to help you. And why am I saying this? Because I believe in diversification, and I say it over and over. Diversify, diversify, diversify. Don't just invest in one area. Protect your assets, protect your family, protect everyone and your future. And you got to do that by finding ways to diversify your finances. And you can do this with Allegiance Gold. Right now, they're offering $5,000 of free silver on a qualifying purchase when you tell them that Sara sent you. Again, $5,000 of free silver on a qualifying purchase when you tell them that Sara sent you. So don't wait, call or click today. Don't end up like people in Canada. We can't trust this government, even right now with the bureaucracy the way it is, and even some of our private firms and our banking systems, they've gone woke. They will come after you and they will target you and your money, and you should not let them. Right now, if you call 1-877-702-7272, that's for Allegiance Gold, 877-702-7272. That's 877-702-SARA, SARA, or go to protectwithsara.com. We can't control the Biden administration, folks, but we can prepare. 877-702-7272. That's 877-702-SARA. No age. SARA. Or go to protectwithsara.com. Happy to have my friend Lee Smith on the show with us today on the Sarah Carter Show. Lee, you're a columnist, investigative journalist. You're the author of The Permanent Coup, How Enemies, Foreign and Domestic, Targeted the American President. And by the way, I told you before we came on, I think it's like the perfect title for a book. And for any of you out there who have not read this book, The Permanent Coup by Lee Smith, you need to go and you need to get it. You need to get it on Amazon because it's going to give you the full outline of why President Trump has been targeted and continues to be targeted by not only the establishment, but by enemies outside the United States as well. And I think that's very important. So thanks for being on the show, Lee.
Sarah, thank you for inviting me on. It's a pleasure to see you. And I'm really honored to be here with you today.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor to have you on the show. My gosh, it's been so many years since even 2016, when President Trump first took office. And I mean, you were directly, like I was, and so many others, involved in investigating what was happening to President Trump, particularly the constant targeted attacks by the left, also as well by the bureaucracy itself, which I think for the first time in American history, I realized, and I think so many people did for the first time, that it was so exposed. I think that was the first time in American history, in my opinion, that there was so much exposed about the makeup of our bureaucracies and how they were actually being weaponized. Do you think this is the first time this has happened, or do you think this is the first time we've actually seen it?
Well, I think that's a really good question. It's something I think about a lot. I think it's not just about Donald Trump, and it's not just about the bureaucracy. I mean, one of the things that I'm trying to explain more and more, and Sarah, as you mentioned, you and I have been looking at this along with, other people, John Solomon, Molly Hemingway,
Correct.
A whole bunch of terrific reporters who are working on this. I think the more and more we have looked at this, the more insight we have on this, and I've come around to the view that just talking about it in terms of the deep state at this point isn't helpful. I think that we need to see certain
Agreed.
people who have been raising their hands the whole time, and they're saying, "I'm here, I'm behind it, I'm doing it," and these are not just intelligence officials. So I think a number of different things came together. Certainly, people didn't like the message. They do not like the message that Donald Trump is conveying, because when we're talking about a political, corporate, cultural, and media establishment, they believe, as is true with many performative elites, and I use performative to say that this is not really an elite. These people are terrific failures, right? And they're very insecure about their position. And so we see all the time, this is how performative elites respond. They have no confidence in their own abilities. So, of course, and again, they lose again and again and again. They're failures. And this is how they lash out. And one of the things they've done is they've taken their failures out on the person who's called them out for failure. And that's Donald Trump. But as Trump is correct to say, I believe, he's really going after the American public. They're really going after the public. That's who the establishment is targeting on this. So I think that one of the things that's happened, I think, and I may seem a little too optimistic on this, Kent, you can certainly correct me. But look, I think that actual social media and the proliferation of information has given us much more insight into how what we've come to call the deep state, the administrative state, permanent Washington, however we want to talk about it, how they actually operate. So I'm not sure. Certainly, our country has never been through what we're going through now, what they're putting us through, right? But I interpret what you said, your question, to have been, have they done stuff like this before? They've certainly never gone after a president the way they've gone after Donald Trump. but have they pushed things their direction? Is there a permanent bureaucracy that expects elected officials to follow their lead? Absolutely. And now we have much more insight into this.
Let's talk about some of those permanent members that are lashing out, and then, of course, the other part of what I think your answer was brilliant, is how Donald Trump was very clear. President Trump said, this isn't just about me. This is about you, because you elected me. You didn't allow it to be the establishment pick of the GOP, the establishment pick of the Democratic Party. He came out of left field and he shook up Washington. One of those people was former CIA Director John Brennan, former FBI Director James Comey was another, in my opinion, Andy McCabe, and James Clapper. I thought they were really important because they set the tone for what I believe was sedition. I mean, they knew when they briefed President Trump, and I always go back to this, in January 2017, Lee, they knew when they went in there and they briefed him on that dodgy dossier by Christopher Steele, which everybody knows about now, that was a lie. And they briefed him on it for the sole purpose of getting that out in the media. That is my opinion on that, and I'm not going to back down based on the evidence. I've always believed that they did that to get that out in the media so Jake Tapper would then at CNN run with it, that BuzzFeed would post it, and they would destroy his reputation, right? I believed it was...
Absolutely right. I think that was the purpose of briefing him on that, so they could put that out there and they could delegitimize his presidency. I absolutely agree. I think, you and I, again, and others, we were accustomed to thinking, certainly during the Trump years, hey, look, Hillary Clinton paid for the dossier, all right? Mm-hmm. So Hillary Clinton is clearly behind this, and that's true. But when you were talking about the different spy chiefs who briefed Donald Trump on this, Comey, Brennan, Clapper, I think we need to look, who were all these people working for at the time, right? They were all working for Barack Obama. I think that there's plenty of there's huge amounts of evidence all over the place, right? We know about the January 5th, 2017 meeting. Susan Rice wrote a memo about it, right? We know that Brennan
her exoneration memo.
Actually, I don't even think that's really an exoneration memo. I think that's actually Obama taking credit. I think that I think that he wanted to take credit for this. All right. I think if we look around at the different actions of Barack Obama, he's taking credit all over the place. We don't want to acknowledge it because, first of all, because what's happened to the country is extremely painful. And then second of all, we've had a habit of ignoring things about Barack Obama that basically start with his 2008 campaign against John McCain. Remember, McCain is like, yeah, I'm not going to run that ad about calling Jeremiah Wright a racist and by implication Obama, because I'll look like a racist. So Barack Obama has played on the sensibilities of the American public remarkably well. Maybe you saw an interview a couple weeks ago by a colleague of mine at Tablet Magazine, David Samuels. He interviewed one of Barack Obama's biographers, a man named David Garrow. I highly recommend this to your great audience. Very terrific, important, long interview. Garrow is a man of the left. He won a Pulitzer Prize for his biography of Martin Luther King. His biography of Obama did not sell very well, nor was it much noticed, published in 2017. That's because it was highly critical of Obama. One of the interesting things that Garrow points out in this interview is he says he's not a normal person. He's not a normal politician. He's not a normal human being, right? I think that one of the things that we're seeing here, that we've been seeing since 2016, 2017, is the larger effect of a not normal person, basically a pathological person who was sitting in the White House. And that's Barack Obama. I think if we look at a lot of the things that are happening around us, we need to see it clearly and explain it clearly. I know that's something that probably your audience is concerned about. I know my family and everyone I talk to is like, I don't understand, why is George Soros spending millions and millions of dollars on DAs who don't enforce the law, and effectively they're unleashing felons on American families, on American communities.
Leah, I talked about that this weekend on Fox News. I brought it up. I brought it up because I said we can't just walk around the elephant in the room, right? And that's a big theme of mine this year. It's like if the elephant's in the room, we've got to talk about it. We can't just pretend it's not there, right? So I
I
said,
absolutely
how
agree.
is right, right. So how is it that George Soros has admitted that he wants to put these DAs in place? He wrote an op-ed last year in the Wall Street Journal, his own words, I'm going to continue to fund these district attorneys that are soft on crime. This is the reason why, which is BS. I know I think we all kind of know the real reason why. It's not that he really cares about, the criminal element, not jailing them, but we're literally watching our cities being torn apart, torn asunder. I'm in Oakland. I can't believe what I've seen there. 80% increase in homicides, since 2019. You can't even shut your door and leave a box in the car without having someone break into the car. San Francisco, the same way. Baltimore, Kensington, Philadelphia, people all over the streets, just like a zombie world. Lee, I travel to Guatemala City. I travel to San Salvador. I go to Mexico. I have never seen it that bad there. Chicago, Baltimore, they look like war zones. You're right.
So look, you're talking about, let's remark on the elephant in the room. I think that's really important. That's a great way to put it. All the time we walk around and we look at the Biden administration's policies and we go, well, that seems crazy. Opening the borders, who would do that? It seems crazy. I think it's time to recognize it is crazy, right? Why is these are pathological people.
Mm-hmm.
Why has George Soros decided to destroy American cities? Because he's pathological. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no special reason about, this multi-billionaire is looking to collect a little bit more on the side with real estate or whatever. He's pathological, right? It's very important. We all sort of speak around it. This looks crazy. I don't understand. All these policies are crazy. The White House talks about gender affirming care. What they're really doing is sterilizing and mutilating children. Why do they use these inversions of language? I don't get it. I don't understand it. It seems crazy. Unfortunately, that's where we are right now. We're living in the world shaped by a pathological regime. And at the head of that regime, at the top of this very large network, is Barack Obama. Right. So these are the things that I think we need to be able to talk about to understand where we are.
And
because
we can't
the only way to get out is to understand it clearly.
Right. And we can't be afraid. I keep telling people we need to speak up and speak out when there's a wrong. We have to do it. And it's going to be frightening, right? Because we've seen what's happened to other people. We've seen them ostracized. We've seen the battle that many of us have had to fight against this idea that we're conspiracy theorists. And then in the end, it's like, okay, they were right. And now we're just going to move on and pretend like that didn't happen. But you brought up something that it struck me, pathological. There was an interview with Barack Obama after, and I can't remember if it was 60 Minutes or who conducted the interview, but it was on a clip on Twitter where he states, they said, would you love to have had a third term? Do you remember this?
Yes.
And he says,
yes, he said this several times, by the way. I know the clip you're referring to. It wasn't just his he said it to several people. Stephen Colbert, he said it he's at least 3 times where he's taled about this. Sorry to interrupt.
Where he says, no. I'm glad because I didn't realize it was 3 times where he said he didn't want to be in front, the front man. He would like to have a puppet and work behind the scenes and move things in the direction he sees fit. Basically, what he's doing. It's exactly what he's doing he's saying it to our face without saying it. And I can see right now that the puppet is President Biden, who he himself, I think, is compromised. I'm not giving him any breaks because I think he's a lifelong politician who has sold our nation out to our enemies. And now he really is the Manchurian candidate, in my opinion. How how do we prove these things? I mean, they're just saying it openly.
I mean, proving it, I mean, the evidence is in front of us.
Right. It's like the keys.
We don't want to, because you have people on the right, colleagues of ours, friends, whatever, who will both say something like, look at Joe Biden. He can barely complete a sentence. He stumbles all the time. Perhaps he's incontinent. He's certainly in cognitive decline. And then they turn around and they say, Joe Biden is doing all of these different things. You can't have two things at the same time, right? The evidence is in front of us. And when people say the man is in cognitive decline, the man is barely there. The man has spent more than 30% of his presidency on vacation, right? So you can't turn around and go, Joe Biden is some terrific mastermind. And he's doing these different things. But the Democratic Party is worried now that Joe Biden is in decline. Joe Biden is in the same place now where he was in 2020. The Democratic Party bosses chose him in 2020, right? This is another thing I think that people should understand. If we were at a normal time in American politics, it's true. Democratic Party consultants, the party bosses would say, boy, Biden is just losing it. What are we going to do? There's no way we're going to get people to the polls with this guy.
You'd get like Jim Carville out there on TV talking about, well, we got to move him around. We got to find someone else. This isn't working.
So what about Gavin Newsom? What about this and that? But that's not where we are right now in American politics. We're at a pathological stage. This is very important for people to understand. And if we were not there, Joe Biden would not have been the nominee in 2020, right? If we were at a normal stage, Biden's Justice Department would not have indicted Donald Trump twice on nonsense charges, right? On third world style charges. So again, I think partly we're bargaining. Well, but maybe it's still a little real. Maybe it's not so crazy the time we're living in. Maybe the Democratic Party, they still have enough good sense to realize that Joe Biden's a problematic figure. That's not where we are. It's very important we stop bargaining, right? Look at reality the way it is. It's hard, but it's better than fooling ourselves about things that are not the case. We're not in a place where they're going to move in a really sound, interesting, solid Democratic Party candidate. They have one, right? RFK Jr. Look at what they're doing to him. They're trying to destroy him, right? So that's another piece of evidence that people should use to piece this together. RFK Jr. is a normal political figure, regardless of what people think about his take on vaccines, or regardless of what people think about his take on
to think that.
He has a right to think that. Of course. And so he's a normal person, comes from a normal period in American political history. What we're looking at now is Joe Biden represents something else. Barack Obama represents something else. George Soros, the party's biggest donor, represents something else.
I want to talk to you about that bargaining, because it's a very important place you're going. Everywhere I go, from the people who are working right now outside of my house, they're great guys. They're doing construction. We're doing some home improvements. And they'll say to me, Sara, what are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? We're watching our country turn upside down. They don't trust the upcoming election. I'm just talking. I hear this everywhere I go, especially from conservatives, of course, and independents. They're worried about the future. They don't know what the next steps will be. We talk about not bargaining anymore and facing reality. That's a pretty scary and daunting subject when you, as the citizen that is supposed to be in charge, Lee, our founding fathers gave us the power, right? It's in our hands. We read about it in our Constitution, in our Bill of Rights. When we feel like we are losing that power, when we feel like somehow we have slept at the wheel and given that power up to these elites and to these bureaucrats, those that are like Brennan, Clapper, Comey, and of course, Barack Obama, George Soros, people coming out of the woodwork, Klaus Schwab, for crying out loud, who's coming out and telling us in our face, like, hey, guess what? You guys aren't going to have any privacy anymore. It's full transparency. And I don't care if you are Americans. That's the direction of the world. what are the regular people supposed to do? I feel like it's, it's a musical. It's, it's like we're struggling. We're like the paupers, like looking out for some answers or for some leadership.
Well, that's why I say I think it's important for people to understand the time that we're living in. And to understand the time that we're living in, it's not that the political winds have shifted under us, right? We're right now, the ruling class is led by very sick and damaged people. So the first thing that I would say, if my advice were asked for, I'd say embrace your normalcy. Embrace your loved ones, embrace your family. Remember, you're the normal one. You look at them and they seem freakish, and you're right, they're freakish. That's what it is. They're freaks. This happens all the time. We're not the first. We're not the first society to go through this, to experience this.
Well, who before? Who was another society? Quickly, like
pathological. I mean, in the 20th century. I mean, pathological. I mean, the Chinese Communist Party is a pathological regime. Right. I mean, so we've seen this 20th century. We've seen it a lot. And there's a reason, of course, that the U.S. elites, unfortunately, including people on the right and not just on the left, but have embraced the Chinese Communist Party. Right. That's how the Democratic Party cannot run political campaigns without Chinese money. Right. It comes from where? It comes from Wall Street. It comes from big tech. It comes from Hollywood. It comes from academia, all of which depend on a steady flow of cash coming from Beijing, right? So amazing. They've tied themselves to a slave regime, right? A murderous, exterminationist slave regime. Right. That's what the Chinese Communist Party is. That's who the Democrats, and again, in many cases, some Republicans, who they have tied themselves to. Right. So just that in itself is enough to make regular Americans go, my God, I can't believe this. It's not just that it's impoverishing Americans, and it's not just that it's ditching this regime, but Americans by nature should look at this and be appalled. So that's a place to start right there to say, we're not the first people in history to whom this has happened, right? Where we've had an elite, where we've had an insane elite try to run us over. And that's what's going on. I'm just saying the first most important thing is just clarity. Understand what it is. This is not a political debate about where we should spend, where we should spend U.S. taxpayer money. I don't know. Do we need more F-35s, or should we have more after-school programs, or what? We're sending billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine in a failed proxy war on the border of a nuclear power. That's insane too.
And barely giving money to the people that have lost their homes in or with course. FEMA, in Hawaii, right. that have lost everything in their lives. Americans that have lost their lives, homes, and everything. I know I'm keeping you longer than I said I would, but I absolutely am going to bring you back. But I want to talk about President Trump and the upcoming election before I let you go. They are working diligently, they being the left and the establishment, to ensure that President Trump does not become the front runner in the primary. He absolutely, I believe, will, unless something goes sideways. Tell me your assessment on what you think is happening here and the struggle in this abnormal time for normal people.
A lot of people, whether they're pollsters on the right or consultants or whatever they are, and they think that it would be friends and colleagues say, I don't know how Trump wins. There's no path to victory. All the state legislatures are under control of lunatics all throughout the left. And, I hear that argument and it makes sense to me. But also I have to say, just looking at the way that the Obama-Biden faction is responding to Trump, I mean, they want to destroy him. Right, so they're vicious, and I think they would want to destroy him no matter what. But I'm certain that they feel that Donald Trump can win, and that's why they're going after him. So this is one of the things I would say to people. I'm like, look, we're in it. We're always in it. As Americans, we're always in it. Don't despair, right? Because that's what their campaign is. It's a campaign of demoralization and desecration. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make you despair. And that's why I say, hold on to your normalcy, embrace your family, embrace your loved ones, embrace your church, your book group, whatever it is. And that's why I also encourage people to look at the facts. They wouldn't be looking to destroy Donald Trump the way they are if they didn't think that Donald Trump has a very good chance of defeating them in an election. That, given the amount of cheating that they will do, which is a given, but in spite of that, they fear Donald Trump. They fear Donald Trump supporters. That, I think, is yet another encouraging sign.
And this is, I agree with you 100%. Why do they fear those who support Donald Trump and President Trump so much? What is their greatest fear about what he is capable of and his supporters? What is it that they want to stop?
Well, I mean, again, first of all, we heard James Comey speak about this. They're worried that Donald Trump will find them out, will identify them, and will make people pay for what they've done, not just to Donald Trump, but what they did to the country during Trump's first term and what they're doing now. I think that's one part of it. But also, again, these are very fearful people. These are not talented people. They're very ambitious people, and they have a lot of power right now. But they're very fearful people, and they're fearful of losing their power. They're fearful of being called out. Look at how these people operate, right? The most important thing that they have are their networks. This is what the Democratic Party is. The Democratic Party pays Democrats to do Democratic Party things, right? Up and down the board, that's what it is. So they're worried about losing that kind of power. And if you look at it in that way, you realize that especially the power centers and the Democratic Party, as well as the intelligence bureaucracies, the permanent bureaucracy in Washington, very, very small number of people. I think the thing that they fear most is they understand very well that they're a minority, right? A very, very, very small part of the American people. Thank God for that.
Thank God for that. But we need someone like President Trump or somebody, we need him, or we need someone that has the courage that he does on a second term or a first term to go in there and gut these agencies and expose what they have been doing, because they have trampled our Constitution, our Bill of Rights. They have seized power that I believe we can only imagine what they've already have seized, what they've been capable of doing, especially when it comes to the collection of data and information. And that's what really, and I agree with you that it is power that they seek to attain. And they will do everything in that power to keep people like him out, and you and anybody else who is speaking out against them. Lee, where can we get your book? Any advice for the American voter? I'm bringing you back. I know I'm going to.
Thank you. I look forward to it. Well, yeah. I mean, I always like to encourage people to pay
both your books,
to patronize their local independent booksellers if they can. So if they can, they can find The Permanent Coup and The Plot Against the President there. And, follow me on Truth Social, Lee Smith, at Lee Smith. I believe it's at Lee Smith DC, and I know that's what it is on Twitter.
That's it.
At Lee Smith DC. And, and I always like to try to respond and respond to people when I can. I really enjoy the conversation. I've learned so much from people. So, yeah, I hope you will all reach out to me if you can.
And we need to stick together. I keep telling everyone we have a great audience here. They love reaching out to the people who are on the show. They love to communicate with me and tell me how they feel. And I'm sure they'll be begging to get you back on because we have so much to look into here. I feel like it's just part one of like 10 with you. Any new books in your future that we should be holding our breath?
I'm working on a few things right now. Bring me on in a couple months, and I'll have a little more details on that.
Oh, that'd be great. Oh, you got it. You are definitely coming back on the show, Lee. Thank you so much. God bless you. Have a great day. And
thank you so much, Sara. You too.
Yeah, you're just such a great patriot. You're truly, truly an American treasure. Thank you. Okay, so we need to rely on our normalcy. We need to look at things for what they truly are. We cannot be afraid to speak the truth. And when you see that elephant in the room, folks, you've got to call it out. Do not cower. Do not hide. Call it out. Stand up and believe in what you know is true. Don't question yourself. You know in your heart what is right, what is wrong, and what is a truth and what is a lie. And when we start from that, we will win our nation back. But I guarantee you this, we will not win our nation back by cowering, by hiding, by allowing the lies to exist and live, by allowing those lies to infiltrate the minds of our children and our youth. We will lose our nation if we allow that to happen. But just like Lee Smith said, just like I say, stand up to it. Don't be afraid. There are more of us than there are of them. If you love today's show and want even more of the Sara Carter Show, make sure you rate this podcast 5 stars and subscribe to your favorite podcast app. I don't care what it is, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on Truth at Sara Carter Official, on Twitter at Sara Carter DC, and on Instagram at SCarterDC. God bless you. God bless our nation. And God bless the great state of Texas. And by the way, God bless President Donald Trump.